On my birthday, I found my wife engaged in Hawaii. My revenge exposed the scam and left her broke. I was cheated on and bankrolled their dream life. I found out my wife was in Hawaii with her lover. I always thought our marriage was solid. I mean, isn't that what everyone wants to believe? 5 years with Leah felt like a lifetime in all the best ways. At least that's what I told myself. She was the lively one in the relationship, the social butterfly who thrived on attention, while I was more reserved. I kept the household running smoothly, focusing on work, bills, and long-term plans. Leah was the spark that made everything exciting, or so I thought. The cracks in our Southern California perfect life started small, like faint hairline fractures you don't notice until they deepen. Leah had this way of brushing off serious conversations, always pivoting to something light and inconsequential. "How was your day?" I'd ask when I got home from work. She'd smile, tell me about some new recipe she wanted to try or a funny story about a friend, but never anything deeper. It was like she was deflecting, and I let it slide. Financially, I carried most of the weight. My job paid well, and I handled the big-ticket items: mortgage, car payments, savings. Leah, on the other hand, had a small photography business that seemed more like a hobby than a career. She said it was her passion, and I supported that. She covered groceries and little things for herself, at least that's what I believed. Over time, though, she started asking for more. "The business is slow this month," she'd say, or "I need some extra cash for supplies." It wasn't a big deal to me. At first, she was my wife. Of course I'd help her. But then the requests became more frequent, almost casual. "Can I use your card for this?" she'd ask, flashing me that smile I'd fallen for years ago. I rarely hesitated. What was mine was hers. Marriage is about trust, right? And then there were the late nights. Leah had always been social, but she started staying out longer, her reasons growing vaguer each time. "Networking event," she'd say, or "girls' night out." Sometimes she'd come home with shopping bags and say they were gifts or incredible sales she'd stumbled upon. I didn't press her. I figured I'd be a bad husband if I questioned every little thing. But there was one night that stuck with me. We were having dinner, and her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Each time she'd glance at the screen, smirk, and put it face down on the table. When I teased her about being popular, she laughed it off. "Just a group chat," she said quickly, changing the topic. I didn't think much of it at the time, but something felt off. The distance between us grew gradually, so slowly that I barely noticed it at first. Leah was still affectionate, in her own way, but the connection we once had seemed thinner, like a thread being worn down over time. I chalked it up to stress. Maybe she was worried about her business or needed more space. I convinced myself it was nothing, that she'd come to me when she was ready. But the turning point came when she asked for something unusual. "I need more access to our joint account," she said one morning over coffee. "It's just for some big purchases for the business." Her tone was casual, almost rehearsed, but I didn't question her. I added her to the account, trusting her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner. If she needed something, I wanted to provide it. Looking back, I see how blind I was. All the pieces were there: the late nights, the vague excuses, the constant requests for money, but I ignored them. I didn't want to believe there could be anything wrong. I loved Leah, and I thought she loved me. What more was there to say? If only I'd known what was coming. If only I'd seen the cracks before they turned into a full-blown collapse. But hindsight is always perfect, isn't it? I didn't know it yet, but my world was about to be turned upside down, and it all started with one simple swipe on social media. It was just another quiet afternoon after work when everything changed. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through social media to unwind the way I often did. My timeline was filled with the usual nonsense memes, political rants, vacation photos, but then something stopped me cold. It was Leah. My Leah. There she was, smiling on a beach in Hawaii, wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. The caption read, "Paradise with my love engaged and blessed." I blinked, convinced I was seeing things. My thumb hovered over the screen as I scrolled down, heart pounding. There were more pictures, her standing next to a man I didn't recognize, his arm draped around her like they were the happiest couple in the world. In some shots they were surrounded by people, clearly his family, raising champagne glasses to toast the engagement. Engaged. My mind reeled. I read the caption again and again, convinced my eyes had misunderstood. But the next post made it clear. "So grateful to my fiancé's family for this magical trip. Best parents ever." There was no mistake. My wife was in Hawaii celebrating her engagement to another man. My first reaction was disbelief. This couldn't be real. There had to be some explanation. Maybe these were old photos, or she was on some work trip and got caught up in someone else's moment. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But then I noticed the date on the post. It was from that morning. My hands started shaking as I clicked on more photos. Each one was worse than the last. Leah laughing with the other family members, sipping cocktails on a yacht, posing in front of a luxury resort. I recognized the name of the hotel immediately. It was one of the most expensive places in Hawaii, the kind of place you only dream about unless you're a millionaire. And that's when it hit me. The charges. All those credit card alerts I'd brushed off as her handling business expenses. I opened my banking app, dread pooling in my stomach. Sure enough, the evidence was all there. First-class flights, thousands spent on resort accommodations, spa treatments, dinners, excursions. I scrolled through the transactions, each one feeling like a punch to the gut. She'd used my money. Every bit of that lavish trip, every toast, every luxury had been funded by me. And not once had she mentioned going to Hawaii. Not once had she said she was planning a trip. She had lied to me, stolen from me, and was now living it up with another man's family, celebrating their engagement with my hard-earned money. I sat there stunned, trying to process what I was seeing. How long had this been going on? How had I missed the signs? My mind raced, pulling at every memory of late nights, secretive texts, and her growing distance. It all made sense now. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment trip. This had been planned meticulously and coldly. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the sheer audacity of it all. She had taken everything I'd given her, my trust, my support, my financial stability, and used it to build a life with someone else. She hadn't even tried to hide it. She posted the whole thing online as if I didn't exist, as if I wouldn't see it. For a moment I just sat there, paralyzed by anger, humiliation, and a crushing sense of betrayal. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd married, was halfway across the world celebrating a future with another man, and I'd unknowingly bankrolled the entire thing. But then something shifted inside me. The disbelief gave way to cold, hard clarity. I might have been blind before, but I wasn't stupid. If Leah thought she could get away with this, she was wrong, very wrong. She might have played me for a fool, but I wasn't going to let her keep doing it. Not another dime, not another second. If she wanted to live this new life so badly, she was about to find out what it cost to burn the bridges she'd left behind. My thumb hovered over the banking app as I started formulating a plan. Step 1, cut her off. Step 2, make sure her dream vacation turned into a nightmare she'd never forget. Leah wanted paradise? Fine. Let her see what happens when it all crumbles. I didn't waste any time. In that instant, sitting alone in the dim light of the living room, I decided I wasn't going to sit back and be a passive participant in her deceit. No, I was going to take control. I grabbed my phone, opened the banking app, and there it was, every single transaction, each one another slap in the face, the flights to Hawaii, the luxurious resorts, spa packages, dinners, everything. I had been paying for her happiness all while she was planning a future with someone else. The realization hit me like a freight train. All these months of pretending everything was fine, of believing we were working toward a future together, it had all been a lie. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself, or the fact that she felt so comfortable hiding it from me. All those late nights when she claimed to be working or meeting friends, lies. Every time she'd asked for more money or told me about new business expenses, lies. She'd been funneling my money into a lavish life with her boyfriend. She had it all planned, with no regard for me or what we'd built together. But as that fire of betrayal roared inside me, something else snapped into place. Power. She thought she could get away with this. She thought she could have her cake and eat it too. She thought she could use me financially and emotionally and I would never know. Well, I was about to prove her wrong. I began with the simple act of blocking her bank card. Just a few taps, and it was done. The card that had paid for that entire trip was no longer in use. She would have no access to any more of my funds. Her carefully orchestrated vacation was about to come crashing down, and I wasn't going to be the one to catch her when she fell. Next, I logged into the credit card account and systematically began canceling all of the charges linked to the Hawaii trip. Flights gone, the 5-star resort canceled, the extravagant dinners, the excursions, the private yacht rental all wiped out. If she wanted to play the role of the wealthy, happy fiancé, she'd have to do it without my money. I kept a cool head as I worked. This wasn't about losing control, it was about taking it back. I wasn't the fool anymore. She had used my trust, my love, and my finances as tools to build her fantasy life, but I wasn't going to let that stand. The phone rang. It was Leah, I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the decline button. Part of me wanted to answer, to confront her, to hear her explain herself. But no, she had made her choice. There was no explanation that could undo the damage. I tapped decline. Let her sit in the chaos she created. She wasn't getting anything from me, not my money, not my time, not my forgiveness. I waited. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. I imagined her checking her account, her disbelief turning to anger as she realized what had happened. She'd try to call, she'd beg, she'd make excuses, but none of that mattered. She was no longer in control. And just like that, the life I had given her, the life she had stolen from me, began to unravel. She had planned a future with someone else using my resources, my trust. Now the rug was pulled out from under her. I let the silence hang in the air, stewing in the satisfaction of knowing that for once, I had the upper hand. But I wasn't done. I had no intention of just canceling the charges and walking away. No, I would make sure she felt every ounce of her mistake. I would let her experience the consequences of her betrayal, and I wasn't going to do it quietly. I wasn't going to be the one left with nothing. I was going to take everything she had taken from me. Her paradise vacation was over, and it was only a matter of time before I made sure she knew that. I couldn't stop picturing it. Leah lounging on a beach chair, sipping champagne, laughing with her fiancé's family all on my dime. I imagined her flashing that fake smile she'd perfected, the one I used to find charming, as she played the role of the perfect future daughter-in-law. The thought of it fueled my resolve. Cutting her bank card was just the beginning. It was time to make sure she felt the full weight of what she'd done. If Leah thought she could waltz off into a new life with someone else while still draining my bank account, she had another thing coming. I logged into my banking app again, this time with the focus of a man on a mission. I pulled up every single reservation linked to my credit card. The Hotel Grand Wailea Resort was the crown jewel of the charges: ocean view suites, private balconies, top-tier amenities. They were living in luxury while I was back here working late nights to keep everything running. Not anymore. With a few clicks, I canceled the reservation. The suites were gone. They'd have to pack their bags and find somewhere else to stay, or better yet, sleep on the beach. Next up, the spa treatments. There was a charge for a couple's massage, and another for some ridiculous treatment involving volcanic mud and gold flakes. Canceled. No more pampering, no more me time. If Leah wanted to relax and get away, she could buy a bottle of sunscreen from the gas station and hope for the best. Then came the private dinners, one of them set on the beach, complete with a personal chef and violinist. Canceled with the same glee I'd canceled the hotel. I hoped the chef had already started prepping the meal. It would make the cancellation sting even more. The flights were the last straw: first-class tickets for 6 people. 6. Leah hadn't just invited her new fiancé, she brought his entire family along for the ride, all courtesy of me. I canceled every return ticket without hesitation. If they wanted to get back home, they could pay for it themselves. Better yet, they could enjoy an extended stay in paradise, assuming they could afford it. As I worked through the transactions, a strange calm settled over me. Each cancellation felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, like breaking free from the chains she'd tied me down with. It wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. She'd stolen from me, lied to me, and humiliated me. This was my way of making sure she couldn't keep taking advantage of me. When I was done, I sat back and let out a long breath. The app showed a list of canceled reservations, each one a reminder that I was finally in control. My money was safe, and her little fantasy was about to come crashing down. The notifications started coming in soon after missed calls from Leah's number, followed by frantic texts. Leah. Hey, I think there's something wrong with the card. The hotel says it's declined. Can you check? Leah, did you block the card? Why, what's going on? Leah, the hotel is saying we can't stay unless we pay up front. What is this about? Leah, you can't do this to me, to us. Call me back right now. To us. That was Rich. There was no us anymore, and if Leah hadn't realized that yet, she was about to. I didn't respond and instead watched as the texts kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. After a while, the messages stopped. I pictured her trying to explain the situation to the hotel staff, the confusion on her fiancé's face when he found out the trip wasn't fully paid for, the growing tension as his family started to realize what was happening. It was satisfying, sure, but it wasn't enough. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, about loyalty, about all the things she'd thrown away. I sat back, phone in hand, waiting. I knew the storm was coming, and I was ready for it. This was just the beginning. The texts and calls had stopped for a few hours, which told me one thing: the fallout in Hawaii had begun. I sat there on the couch imagining the scene. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. The mental picture was vivid enough to bring a small, satisfied smile to my face. It probably started with the hotel. Leah and her boyfriend's family must have been gearing up for another day in paradise breakfast on the terrace, maybe a spa treatment or some snorkeling. Then the front desk would have called, or worse, stopped them as they tried to charge something to the room. "Excuse me, ma'am," the concierge would say. "It seems there's been an issue with your reservation. The card on file has been declined, and your suite is no longer covered." I could picture Leah's face confusion at first, then panic as the reality began to sink in. She would stammer, try to explain that it had to be some mistake, that the card had plenty of funds. She'd probably even flash her most charming smile, hoping to smooth things over. But charm doesn't pay for a $5,000 a night suite. Boyfriend, let's call him Todd, because he seems like a Todd, would step in next. "There's no way," he'd say, puffing out his chest. This trip was already paid for. He'd probably glare at Leah, silently questioning her story. After all, she must have told him she had it all under control, that everything was taken care of, and now, in front of his entire family, she was being exposed. His parents, the Andersons, would chime in, their voices a mix of frustration and embarrassment. "What do you mean it's not paid for? This is ridiculous. We were told this trip was a gift." Gift, that word alone made me chuckle. Yes, it was a gift. A very expensive one, paid for by someone who hadn't even been invited to the celebration. They'd probably start whispering among themselves, wondering if Leah had lied to them too. And knowing her, she had. She'd spun some elaborate tale about how she wanted to treat her fiancé's family, all while conveniently leaving out the part where she used my money to do it. I could almost hear the tension escalating, voices rising as the hotel staff patiently explained that their options were limited. They could pay out of pocket to keep the suites, or they could leave. Simple as that. And then came the spa charges, the dinners, the excursions. One by one they tried to book or enjoy the activities planned for the day, only to be told that none of it was covered anymore. I imagined Leah frantically texting me, then her tone shifting as her fiancé and his family demanded answers. She'd try to spin it, of course, maybe blame the hotel or claim it was all a misunderstanding, but deep down she knew the truth. By the time they realized the flights home had been canceled too, the chaos would be at its peak. The Andersons, who had come expecting a fully paid luxury vacation, would be livid. Todd's father, Mr. Anderson, would probably be shouting at Leah in the hotel lobby, his face red with anger. "You said everything was taken care of. You promised us this trip was on you. What kind of person lies about something like this?" Leah's response would be classic Leah, defensive and full of excuses. "I don't know what happened. This isn't my fault, it's his fault," she'd yell, likely pointing fingers in all directions except at herself. But the real kicker, the Andersons wouldn't care whose fault it was. All they'd see was a mess, a ruined vacation, and the undeniable fact that their son was engaged to someone who couldn't be trusted. Todd in particular would start to put the pieces together. Who was this mysterious him Leah kept mentioning? Why was she so panicked about the money? And why hadn't they been honest about who paid for the trip? It wouldn't take long for him to figure it out. Todd seemed oblivious, but even he would eventually realize that Leah had been living a double life and that her lies were now costing him and his family dearly. Back at home, I put my phone down and leaned back in my chair, letting out a slow breath. I could feel the tension leaving my body, replaced by something colder and sharper satisfaction. They had built this perfect little fantasy on the foundation of my hard work, my trust, and my money. Now it was all crumbling. The ringing of my phone snapped me out of my thoughts. It was Leah again, her name flashing on the screen like a bad joke. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Let her stew in her mess for a while. Let her see what it feels like to lose control. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I was finally free. I knew it wouldn't take long for the fallout to reach a wider audience. People love drama, and what's more dramatic than a wealthy-looking couple being publicly humiliated in paradise? I didn't have to wait long before the notifications started rolling in. Friends, acquaintances, even a CO worker sent me the same videos and screenshots. There they were. Leah, her fiancé Todd, and the entire Anderson clan standing in the middle of the Grand Wailea resort lobby, looking like they were auditioning for a soap opera. Leah's face was a mix of panic and desperation, her hands waving in the air as she argued with the hotel staff. Todd stood stiffly next to her, arms crossed, his jaw tight. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were livid, their voices loud enough to catch the attention of every guest in the lobby. One video captured the moment perfectly. Leah was mid-sentence, shouting, "There has to be some mistake. We're supposed to be very important person guests." Her tone was shrill, teetering on the edge of hysteria. The concierge, calm and professional, simply replied, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the card on file has been deactivated, and no alternate payment has been provided." The comments on the video were brutal. Imagine being this entitled and then finding out you're broke. The cringe is real. Who doesn't double-check their finances before booking a $40,000 vacation? I feel bad for the staff having to deal with these people. The next video was even better or worse, depending on how you looked at it. Todd's father, Mr. Anderson, was berating Leah, his voice loud enough to echo across the marble floors. "You said everything was taken care of. You promised us this trip was on you. What kind of person lies about something like this?" Leah, clearly flustered, tried to defend herself. "It wasn't my fault. There was a mix-up with the payments." "A mix-up?" Mr. Anderson spat. "This isn't some minor error. We're stranded here with no hotel, no activities, and no return flights because of you." Todd finally spoke up, his voice quieter but no less cutting. "Leah, what's really going on here? How are you even paying for all of this?" You could see the gears turning in his head, his trust unraveling by the second. Leah's face went pale, her usual confidence replaced by something closer to fear. She muttered something about handling it, but it was too late. The damage was done. And then came the cherry on top. Leah snapping at the Andersons. "Oh, stop acting like this is such a big deal. You're just being greedy. If you can't afford a few nights in Hawaii, maybe you shouldn't have come in the first place." The gasp from Mrs. Anderson was audible even through the poor quality phone recording. "Greedy," she repeated, her voice shaking with fury. "You invite us on this trip, promise us everything is covered, and now you're calling us greedy. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" The video ended with Todd pulling the engagement ring off Leah's finger. "We're done," he said simply, tossing the ring into his pocket and walking away. His parents followed, leaving Leah standing alone in the lobby, surrounded by judgmental stares from other guests. By the time I finished watching, my phone was buzzing nonstop messages from people asking if I'd seen the videos, comments from mutual acquaintances who were putting two and two together, and even a couple of texts from Leah herself, still trying to explain. But the best part? Leah's attempt to spin the narrative. That evening she posted on Instagram, "Sometimes people you trust turn their back on you when you need them most. Heartbroken but stronger than ever." She was clearly trying to paint herself as the victim, hoping for sympathy from her followers. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I didn't need to make some grand announcement or stoop to her level. Instead, I did something simple. I shared the truth. I posted a brief, factual statement. For anyone wondering, the Hawaii trip Leah is talking about was funded entirely by my money without my knowledge or consent. When I found out, I canceled everything. I won't be disrespected or stolen from. End of story. I didn't name names, didn't include screenshots yet, but it was enough. The comments flooded in almost immediately. "Wait, what? She used your money for her engagement trip? Good for you, man. Don't let her walk all over you." Leah's post makes a lot more sense now. What a mess. By the end of the night, Leah's social media accounts had gone private. The Anderson family was silent. And I poured myself a drink, sat back, and let the chaos unfold. This wasn't revenge. Not really. It was justice. And justice felt damn good. I didn't hear from Leah for a full day after the videos and chaos went viral, but I didn't need to. I had more updates than I could handle courtesy of social media. The fallout was spreading like wildfire, and it was clear that Leah's dream engagement had turned into an absolute disaster. The most satisfying part? Watching the Anderson family completely turn on her. A friend sent me yet another video, this one shorter, but it was all I needed. Leah stood in the middle of the resort lobby, tears streaming down her face while Mrs. Anderson berated her. "You humiliated us," she yelled, her voice loud enough to draw even more onlookers. "You lied about everything, Leah. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to be stranded here relying on a woman who couldn't even afford the trip herself?" Leah tried to defend herself, of course. "It wasn't my fault. He canceled everything." She practically spat the word he, refusing to even say my name. "I didn't know he'd cut me off. This isn't fair." "Not fair?" Mrs. Anderson's voice dripped with disdain. "What's unfair is that you dragged us into this mess. You used us, Leah, and you lied to Todd. The camera panned to Todd, who stood a few feet away, arms crossed, looking like he wanted to sink into the floor. He wasn't yelling like his parents, but his disappointment was obvious. He finally spoke, his voice quieter than theirs but no less devastating. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, shaking his head. "All this time you made it seem like you were doing this for us, for me. You let me think you were the one paying for everything." Leah stepped toward him, her voice breaking. "I did it for us, Todd. I was trying to make it special. I didn't think it mattered where the money came from." Todd flinched like she'd slapped him. "Didn't matter?" His voice was sharper now, filled with disbelief. "It mattered, Leah. It mattered because you lied. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. And now look at what you've done. My family's humiliated. You've turned this whole trip into a joke." "It's not my fault," Leah screamed, her voice rising in desperation. "He's the one who canceled everything. Blame him, not me." But Todd wasn't buying it. He shook his head again, pulling something from his pocket. It was the engagement ring. "You know what, Leah? I think this was a mistake." He placed the ring in her palm, his voice flat and final. "I can't marry someone I can't trust." The collective gasp from the onlookers was almost audible through the screen. Leah froze, staring at the ring as if she couldn't believe what had just happened. "Todd, wait," she started. But he was already walking away, his parents trailing behind him. The last thing Mrs. Anderson said before leaving was, "Good luck finding someone else to pay for your lifestyle, Leah." Leah crumbled after that. She dropped to her knees right there in the lobby, sobbing into her hands. People were still filming, of course, and the comments on the video were brutal. "Karma's undefeated. She deserves every second of this. Imagine scamming your husband to impress your fiancé." I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered how she'd looked so smug in those engagement photos, how she'd called me an ATM, how she'd used me without a second thought. Any pity I might have felt was gone in an instant. When Leah finally called me that evening, I let it ring for a few seconds before answering. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone cold. "You ruined everything," she screamed. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for hours. "Do you know what you've done? Todd broke up with me. His family hates me. Everyone's talking about this online." I stayed silent for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Then I said, "Good." She sputtered. "Good? What do you mean, good? You've destroyed my life." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed your life. You made your choices, Leah. You lied to me, you stole from me, and now you're facing the consequences. That's not on me, it's on you." She tried to argue, but I wasn't interested. "I don't have anything else to say to you," I cut in. "We're done, Leah. You made that clear when you decided to build a life with someone else. Enjoy the mess you've made." And with that, I hung up. I blocked her number right after. I didn't need to hear her excuses, her pleas, or her attempts to shift the blame. She'd made her bed, now she could lie in it. The next day, I filed for divorce. It wasn't just about ending the marriage, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. Leah had taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take any more. As for Todd and his family, well, from what I heard through the grapevine, they went no contact with Leah after the trip. She'd burned every bridge she had, and there was no coming back from it. Justice had been served, and for the first time in years I felt free. When the dust settled in Hawaii, the chaos followed Leah straight back home. I knew it was only a matter of time before she showed up at my door, and I was ready for her. I hadn't spoken to her since I'd hung up on her after her pathetic attempt to blame me for ruining her engagement. By then, I had already started the divorce process, but I knew she wouldn't go quietly. It was late afternoon when the knock came. I glanced through the peephole and sure enough, there she was, disheveled, exhausted, and clearly desperate. For a moment I considered leaving her out there, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame, keeping the chain locked. "Leah," I said flatly. "What do you want?" Her face was a mix of anger and desperation. "Can we talk, please?" she pleaded. "This is all just a big misunderstanding." I raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding? You mean the part where you took thousands of dollars of my money without asking, or the part where you used it to fund an engagement celebration for another man?" Her expression shifted into that familiar mask of indignation. "It wasn't like that," she snapped, but then quickly softened her tone. "Look, I know I made mistakes. I didn't think you'd react like this. React like this? I laughed cold, sharp, and without humor. You didn't think I'd react, Leah? You stole from me, you lied to me, and then you flaunted it all over social media. What exactly did you think I'd do? Thank you? She hesitated, searching for the right words. I thought we could work through it, she said finally, her voice trembling. I never meant for things to get so out of control. I was just trying to find happiness and you weren't there for me. There it was, the excuse I'd been waiting for. She was trying to make this my fault. Let me get this straight, I said, crossing my arms. You were unhappy, so your solution was to cheat on me, use my money to impress your new boyfriend and his family, and leave me out of it entirely, and now you want me to feel sorry for you? She flinched but pressed on. I wasn't thinking straight, she whispered. Todd, he made me feel special, and You thought you could have your cake and eat it too, I cut her off. That you could use me as your safety net while building a life with someone else. Well, guess what, Leah, the safety net's gone, and so am I. Her desperation grew. Please don't do this, she begged. We can fix this. I'll pay you back. How? I interrupted. How exactly do you plan to pay me back, Leah? With what money? From what I've seen, you've burned every bridge you have. Todd dumped you, his family hates you, and I've already filed for divorce. Her eyes widened, and she stumbled back slightly. You filed? That's right, I said. The papers are on their way. You're not welcome here anymore, Leah. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. For a moment I thought she might lash out, but instead she crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she muttered, I don't have anywhere to go. I felt no empathy. Not anymore. That's not my problem, I said, my tone cold. You wanted a fresh start, Leah? Well, here it is. You're free to go wherever you want, just not here. I closed the door in her face and locked it, ignoring the muffled sound of her sobs on the other side. Eventually she left, and I sat down on the couch, staring at the door. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was relief. Leah had taken so much from me, my trust, my love, my peace of mind, but now I had taken it all back. She could no longer hurt me, no longer manipulate me. I was free. Over the next few days, I blocked her on every platform and made sure my accounts were airtight. She tried to contact me a few more times, leaving voicemails that ranged from apologetic to furious, but I never responded. I was done. My lawyer assured me that the divorce would be swift and clean given the overwhelming evidence of her financial and emotional betrayal. Leah's life was unraveling, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. Let her figure out her next move. I had already made mine, and it felt damn good. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Leah didn't even try to fight back after everything went public. I had the receipts literally, screenshots of every transaction, her social media posts, and the chaos that unfolded in Hawaii made it clear who was at fault. Even her own lawyers seemed disinterested in defending her. She signed the papers without much protest, probably because she had no leg to stand on. Once the legal dust settled, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders. For years I'd carried the burden of being the responsible one in our marriage, the provider, the rock. But now I was free. Free from Leah, free from her lies, and free to focus on my own life for the first time in what felt like forever. But Leah wasn't done causing drama, not yet. She tried one last stunt, posting a long tearful message on social media about how I had ruined her life and humiliated her publicly. She painted herself as the victim, claiming I'd overreacted and destroyed her happiness. Her followers ate it up. At first, the comments were full of sympathy. You deserve better, girl. He sounds like a monster. Stay strong, queen. Then I made my move. I didn't want to engage, but I also wasn't going to let her rewrite history. I uploaded a simple post of my own with screenshots of her texts, the canceled transactions, and the receipts that proved every word of her sob story was a lie. My caption was short and to the point. Here's the truth. You decide. The response was immediate and brutal. The sympathy she'd garnered evaporated in an instant. Comments on her post shifted from supportive to scathing. Wait, you were the one cheating using his money for your boyfriend's engagement party? Gross. This is next-level entitlement. No wonder he left you. Leah deleted her post within hours, but by then the damage was done. Her reputation was in tatters, not just online, but in real life too. Mutual friends stopped speaking to her, and from what I heard through the grapevine, even Todd's family refused to have anything to do with her. She burned every bridge she had, and now she was on her own. As for me, Life moved on, and it was better than I ever could have imagined. Without Leah draining my energy and my bank account, I found myself thriving. I poured my focus into my career, landing a promotion I'd been eyeing for years. With my newfound financial freedom, I finally started traveling, something Leah had always claimed we couldn't afford, even though she was spending thousands behind my back. But the best part wasn't the money or the career success. It was the peace. For the first time in years, I could sit in my own home without feeling the weight of someone else's demands. I could make decisions without second-guessing myself or worrying about being manipulated. One night, as I sat on my balcony with a glass of whiskey, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I realized something profound. I didn't care what Leah thought of me anymore. I didn't care if she was sorry or if she ever changed. She was no longer a part of my life, and I was finally free to write my own story. Sometimes the hardest part of walking away isn't the act, it's letting go of the guilt, the anger, the need for closure. But once you do, the freedom is worth every ounce of pain. I don't know what Leah is doing now, and honestly, I don't care. All I know is that I'm finally living the life I deserve, a life free from lies, betrayal, and the weight of someone else's selfishness. And as I raised my glass to the stars that night, I made a quiet promise to myself. Never again would I let someone dim my light. I'd spent enough time in someone else's shadow. Now it was my time to shine.